Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we'll continue with our second section, which was about theories and hypotheses of second language learning. Last time we talked about the Muriel model, Kirsten's Muriel model, and we talked about his 5 hypotheses. Even though they were criticized, actually they led to further studies in second language learning. But this time we'll talk about information processing cognitive approach. But before our usual quiz, there's a quick reminder for you. The book will be in the description for more information. So the book that I used for reference, I'll put it in the description, in the course description, and I'll try to put it in the under each video. So and I'll try to write for you which chapter that I took the information in this video from. So if you need more information or you want to reach a better understanding, you can check the book. And you can contact me if you have any questions. I'll put my contact info in the course description. So feel free to contact me anytime and I'll try my best to answer your questions. Then our quiz, which is about Muriel model. It's a true-false question. And as always, try to write your answers in the comment section. And I'll try my best to check your answers and tell you the correct answers. So first, it was easy to distinguish between acquired and learned knowledge. So is it true or false? Kirsten carried longitudinal studies. Did the studies that Kirsten carried were longitudinal? The comprehensible input is one level beyond the current level. And finally, teenagers are unlikely to receive language data in front of their peers. So let's start. Information processing cognitive approach. So it stems from cognitive psychology. That's the name cognitive approach or cognitivism. So this approach emphasizes that the mental processes used for interpreting experience are also involved in the acquisition and use of a second language. What do I mean by that? So the experience, for example, it's the problem solving or the math problems, anything that we experience in our life and needs processing. They say that the same mental processes are used for second language learning. So, for example, faculties you use to understand a math problem are generally the same ones used to learn language. Or learn another language. So that's the information processing. The same faculties are used for both like math problems and anything else, and also to learn another language. So information processing, this versus UG, universal grammar. So while the UG approach specifies that there is a separate language faculty, we said the UG says that there is a separate language faculty or mental organ for language acquisition. The information processing approach assumes that the same mental faculties used for problem solving and other cognitive activities are used in L2 acquisition and use. So the UG says that there is a separate language faculty, so there are 2 or more, things for problem solving and things for our faculties for language learning. But the information processing says that the same mental faculties are used for both. Many researchers in the information processing accept that there is an underlying template for all languages. So the underlying template for all languages is the UG. We're talking about the same thing. So researchers in information processing agree that there may be an underlying template for all languages. So there are UG. There is UG actually. But they may or may not agree that it remains available in L2 learning. So even if there is UG, researchers may or may not agree that the UG is still available in L2 learning. And information processing approach focuses on actual performance. We talked about performance is the actual use of the language, while UG focused on the competence. Competence, we said it's what you know about the language. So each one of them focused on separate things. So this approach suggests that the mind is limited in terms of its capacity, and this has important effects on the learning process. So because the mind is limited in terms of its capacity, so the mind is limited, we said that there are several processes that happens in the mind. So there are many things that affect learning process. So what are these factors? Attention and processing limitation and memory. Uh, Controlled processing and automatic processing. These two terms or two things came from the information processing. So they say that there are two types of processing, controlled and automatic. So the controlled processing, it characterizes the new skill learning. So when we learn a new skill, we use controlled processing. So it's controlled, not automatic. It's relatively slow, requires attention, and limited by short-term memory. So the controlled processing, like when you learn a new skill or new grammar rule, it's slow and requires attention and limited by short-term memory constraints. But after practicing and training, it moves to automatic processing. So we start doing the same action without or unconsciously or subconsciously. So it can be carried out relatively rapidly and without conscious effort. So and no short-term memory constraints. So after practicing and training, when it comes something automatic. Then from the information processing, we have another two terms, which are declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. So declarative knowledge, what the learner explicitly knows. So the knowledge that the learner explicitly knows, it's called declarative knowledge. For example, knowing the grammar rule that you need to add an s to a noun to form the plural in English, like dog, dogs. So when you know this rule or grammar rule, it's declarative knowledge. The procedural knowledge is how to do something without having conscious awareness. For example, being able to produce L2 sentences without conscious reflection on the structure. So when you start producing L2 sentences, or in our case, English sentences, without focusing consciously on the grammar or the structure, it's called procedural knowledge. So it's done without conscious. And declarative knowledge comes before procedural knowledge. So procedural knowledge comes after. But it was criticized for some things. Influences from the surrounding social context are not fully recognized and acknowledged. When we say it's like that, it actually seems hard, but it's not like that. Actually, it's the same criticism that we said about universal grammar or innatism. It didn't give much role to the social context or the environment. Then we have heavy reliance on laboratory studies to investigate language processing under controlled conditions. And from that, so language is largely examined outside of real communicative context. So, because the language was studied in laboratories, and so it was outside the real communicative context, because it was under controlled conditions. So that's all we're going to talk about today. Thanks for listening, and see you again, inshallah, in our next video.